Hello, we're joined now by Tom Ryan, the Director General, Ard Stewart of the GAA. Tom has been in the role now for a little over a year, and what a year it has been. No hiding away from the fact that it is the most challenging period that not only our society, but also in its part, the association has gone through. So we're delighted that you've been able to join us today, Tom.
Delighted to join you.
First off, how are you coping personally with this? How are you managing the day job from home?
It takes a little bit of getting used to. I haven't done it very much up to now, Rob, so that's one little adjustment. I gathered all my bits and pieces. I was actually in Croke Park for the bones of last week, for 3 or 4 days of last week, and I gathered everything at the tail end of the week and set up a little trestle table that I borrowed from my neighbour, and a few bits and pieces here. I have everything that I need, and it's grand. It's fine. And everybody in our house, Rob, is still well. Everybody on our road, we've one case of, I think, one neighbour, but in general, both of my parents and both of Mairead's parents are elderly, but they're well. Like every other family we have, both of us have brothers and sisters working in the health service, so a little concerned about that, but they're all still very well as well, and they're working very hard. Everybody has to adjust to a different life, I think, for hopefully for just a short period of time, and things will improve. But it's quite the one little thing in our house actually at the moment. My eldest fellow is doing his leaving cert, Rob, which adds a small little bit of attention to things.
Oh yeah,
he's doing grand. He's doing fine. So when you look at everything that people are going through around us, both personally and professionally and things like that, we're in a good place here in our house, and I'm very grateful for that.
That's really good to hear, and long may that continue. And same, obviously, for everybody who's watching this. The GAA has a special place within Irish society, long held, and those who are in it understand it. Those who are outside might think it a little bit overstated. But when we come to an emergency like this, I think it has been very important that the GAA has been to the fore in getting the messaging out there about coming together by staying apart, and sort of amplifying what we're hearing from the government as well. The GAA moved quite quickly to actually get that messaging out there and to call a halt to all of the training and all of the games. Was that something that, as an association, you just knew was the right thing to do, or was there discussion going on with government that they were aware of the fact of the channels of communication that you had were very important?
The communications from the government agencies were very good throughout March, and there were weekly briefings in the department of the Taoiseach that quite a number of stakeholders, I think, sporting and otherwise, were at. So I was at those for 3 or 4 weeks, and it became clear that something grave was going to emerge, and we had planned for a number of little scenarios, Rob, and we had organised our thoughts around what might emerge, and it became. But oddly enough, I think the Taoiseach actually announced the mass gatherings part, which really prompted our decision. At that point, we had worked out, we weren't going to bother playing games behind closed doors, for example.
Okay.
There were, I think, at the point we made the decision, there were about 20 National League games left, Alliance League games left between the two codes, and it would have felt wrong to continue playing those games purely for their own sake, for the sake of results, while everything else in the country was shutting down. So once we decided we weren't going to play games behind closed doors, at the same time, then we reckoned everything needed to go. So we had our script and we had our plan ready. And I think the Taoiseach, I think it was the 12th, 13th of March. I can't remember. But once the Taoiseach and the Chief Medical Officer issued the diktat on mass gatherings, then at that point we decided we would close everything. And it was a grim thing to do. It wasn't. I remember that day. It wasn't. I didn't enjoy that. But I think the most important thing really for us was to be clear and to try and be decisive about it, because I think we owed it to the membership and we owed it to the health authorities and so on to number one, to play our part, and number two, it's easier, I think, for all of us, Rob, to follow something when it's absolutely clear and there's no little room for manoeuvre around. And it was as easy for us to pull everything, and then hopefully at that time anyway, the plan was bit by bit as we needed to, or as we found we had scope to, we could turn things back on if we found we had overstated it. Whereas if we went with a gradual approach and incrementally shut things down, I wasn't that confident it was going to work. So
Okay.
I would credit the state authorities with very clear communication, because that allowed us a very important couple of weeks to plan for things. So when we needed to, then we were able to respond fairly quickly.
That is important. In terms of how do you associate, the association has got a lot of stakeholders itself, from club to county to provincial level, lots of people that would have had an opinion. Was there any, not dissent, but was there any sort of questioning of whether this was the right thing to do at that point in time, or did they really just sort of take a lead?
There was questioning, but not around the fundamentals of the thing, really, Rob. If you think who the main stakeholders might be, within the space of the couple of hours on that particular, I think it was a Thursday morning, we did our best to talk to we talked to broadcasters, we talked to the players, we talked to commercial partners, we talked to as many people as we thought were going to be impacted by the decision, just to flag it with them. And we had to have an emergency little board meeting as well, to get the authority to do it. And thereafter, geez, everybody was really good. Everybody rode in behind it. The little things that caused not tension, but a little bit of doubt or a little bit of ambiguity were more around the social side of things of the GAA, not the playing of games, and not the Alliance League finals and things like that. It was around the use of grounds as a social hub and a social facility for people in their own communities. And if you remember, at the outset, we still left that scope in there. And in actual fact, we were kind of actively encouraging people to get down and use the walkway or use the ball wall or whatever. And that softened the blow a little bit. I was nervous over the first weekend. I was nervous that there would be perhaps teams or counties or whatever it might be who wouldn't hold the line, but people were just fabulous. Right? There was nothing. There wasn't a whisper of anything. Everybody, I think, understood the gravity of the situation and understood the role that they had to play. And it's been like that from the start with the GA members and units.
Yeah, I think perhaps that quick use of Croke Park as being one of the testing centres, I think that probably just drummed it home to everybody as to just how important this was going to be. How quickly did that emerge? Was that something that you had a specific request from the HSE, or was it something that you offered? And I know Nolan Park, UPMC Nolan Park and Park Equive are both involved in it, as well as other GAA centres.
There are about 20 or 30 now at this stage, Rob, between county grounds and club grounds. Croke Park was the first one, and I think the HSE were in with us over a weekend, on a Sunday, just specking it out. They had made contact with us with regards to its potential use, but it moved up very quickly then thereafter. So by the time they had checked out its suitability, we just wanted to tell the residents, really, and to tell the staff, and to work out what the arrangements might be around stewarding and how the thing was going to work mechanically. But it was up and running within 24 hours of the initial, and there were quicker ones than that thereafter. There have been instances, and I can't even remember specifically which grounds, but there have been instances where the county secretary would ring me and say somebody's coming in at 10 o'clock to look at the place. What's the best approach to take? And the testing has been up and running within 4 or 5 hours after that. So I think that's a testament as well to all of the other grounds around the country that they're more than playing their part as well.
Has there been a central approval process for that, or is it down to local decision makers to just do the right thing?
We tried to do that, and we're at that stage now. Although I don't know whether there'll be very many testing centres from here on in, but certainly the first few took on a life of their own, really, Rob, just because the pace at which things were moving. Yeah. So we just said to the various counties, look, if there's a possibility locally for you to do this, there are a number of little things that we need to sort out, specifically around who's going to operate the thing from a stewarding point of view, insurance, things like that. But we said, look, just take the stance that we're going to do this. and we can tidy up those little bits of things then thereafter. After the first 4 or 5, then we did agree a little protocol with the HSE, which we could just put into play very, very quickly at short notice to allow the thing to happen.
Okay, all down to the communication.
Yeah.
I know you're a club official as well as being the big boss in Croke Park. That sense of community that we've got across clubs, and not only in the GAA but in across all other sports as well. How much to the fore has that been over the last couple of weeks in terms of clubs making their own decisions on how to engage with their community? And also, I know there has been moves involved in more structured and centralized activity and assistance.
Yeah, for the most part, it's organic. I think it's just a genuine desire on the part of people to help and to play a part, and that can be something very, very, very specific and very organized and very structured, or it can be just something as simple as just knocking on someone's door when we were permitted to do that, and a telephone call, or just looking out for your neighbours. There's been a huge groundswell of goodwill, and it's important to allow that to flourish as well, and not to be too structured about the thing. Not everything needs to be organised with military. And as well as that, yourself, clubs are very different in terms of their size and in terms of their scale and in terms of where they are. And the approach and response of a club in a city might be and is very, very different to the approach of a club in the country. But you said it yourself at the start there when we were talking about the role of GA clubs and the role of the organisation in the country. And yeah, it is sometimes, or can descend to the level of a cliche, but it's at times like this that sometimes cliches are cliches because there's something real behind them as well. It's been heartening to see all of that. Really, really heartening. And I think as well, there's a thing in all of us as well too, that you feel a bit better about something sometimes if you are doing something,
actually making putting your hand up and doing something that's concrete and real about it. That is true. There's a huge amount of stuff out there which has actually painted our society in a very good light over the course of this. But aside altogether from the very scary reality of this from a public health point of view, it is going to have a significant economic impact as well. Your former role as the CFO in Croke Park, you'd be perhaps more familiar than most with just how much money it takes to actually run the association and keep it going. How much of an impact is this going to have, both at a very local level and in terms of capital projects that might have to be pushed back, or is it too early to say at this stage?
No, we have a fair idea, Rob. We have a fair idea, and it felt and still feels maybe even a little bit churlish to be talking about those things. There are greater costs being paid by people, but I suppose we do have a responsibility to make sure that the place is fit for purpose and able to get going again when the opportunity permits. So we have to be very, very careful with how we navigate our way through the next few months. It's already having a really serious impact on things. And Central Council wise, there's probably about 60 million euros at risk. All we have is matches. That's all we have, and we don't have an international umbrella organization or anything like that can come to our aid. Everything that we generate is generated pretty much on the island of Ireland, and it's all generated within probably a 2 or 3 month period of the year, which is the period that could be lost to us. So income-wise, we'll suffer. Oddly enough, the tricky thing at the moment is cash. But I think that's just from talking to other people even in other spheres altogether. Cash is a challenge for everybody at the moment. And our model has always really been, we would try our best, Rob, to whatever we generate, we try and filter that around the organisation. That's manifesting itself as a little bit of a problem for us now, but we'll manage that. Also, in terms of the timing of the year, this time of the year in general, we are at the bottom of our cash cycle anyway, because we're funding counties now this time of the year, and we bring in the cash then thereafter towards the tail end of the year. So in terms of matches, it's pretty serious. We've got to manage things carefully now to make sure that, however bad this year is, that we're not paying for the legacy of 2020 in 2021, 2022 and beyond.
Okay. In terms of the individual units, there will be clubs out there that might themselves be falling into, into something of a hole with regards
Yeah,
to even membership renewals.
yeah,
Everybody is hurting financially out there, and if you have to look through the list of monthly outgoings and hold back on some of them,
yeah.
there won't be much of a capacity though for central GAA to actually assist as it would perhaps in other more ordinary circumstances.
We can assist in other ways too, and we can assist indirectly in terms of, I mean, and you've seen it in other organisations in terms of forbearance. Look, we have multi-millions out on loan to clubs and counties and so on, and we've already put in place a little programme around that. There are all manner of other ways, Rob, that we can help, and we will to the extent that we can. Ed right about clubs and the membership thing in particular. We're right in the middle of membership season. The deadline actually was Tuesday. Tuesday night
Yeah.
was would ordinarily have been our membership deadline, and what we asked clubs to do was, rather than announce any particular moratorium or cancellation, we just said, look, we'll keep going in as empathetic a way as you can. Keep collecting the membership, with an eye on the circumstances that people find themselves in. So it's not the most aggressive of processes anyway, Rob. It's not.
Yeah.
But we said we'd try and conclude that little piece of work, and I've no doubt but that the membership will be significantly down. We'll have to maybe change our own rules a little bit as we get through the summer in terms of signing people up to play later on who haven't actually paid by the date, or
Okay.
the membership payment governs things like AGMs and how clubs actually run themselves. So there are other little implications there. So clubs are going to be down on membership. The other one, club bars are all gone. Club lottos, we were deliberating over our own one there yesterday, and we decided we'd leave it for a while and not
Right.
we'll go back to that when things are better. So a bit like the national side of things for ourselves, clubs will be the same. There's no income coming in, no income at all. There are still, I'm sure, at the end of all this and during all this, bills to be paid. So, but that's it feels a bit grubby even to be talking about it, Rob, in some respects. That's no different from enterprises all over the country and families all over the country. So we'll manage.
I do appreciate that. All right. I think that's where sometimes the sport for business, the business side of my business it feels a little bit out there, but it's important.
No, I don't mean anything by that. I shouldn't have said it like
Right.
that.
Yeah. You mentioned about the fact of this being a core period of the season. Has there been any substantive discussions with any of the main sponsors or partners in terms of broadcast about some of the things that are happening there? I know that they would be having those discussions across the board with all sports. We're no different to many others, but we are important.
Yeah, I suppose when I talked to you about big decisions that we had to make, I think I mentioned we tried our best to make sure that sponsors and partners were aware of those things. And I think the key to the difficulties that we're having at the moment lie in good communications and making sure that there are no nasty surprises on the part of anybody involved in a commercial partnership like that. So we haven't really got into any details or any specifics other than I think there's a general sense of solidarity there, Rob, that we're all in this thing together. I think you use the term partner as the right term to use rather than sponsors or things like that. All of our arrangements are long term. They're a representative of kind of an underlying common theme between the organizations, I think. You'd like to think, and I expect, that all of those relationships will survive long beyond what we're going through at the moment. So that will necessitate a team approach to the thing. You've seen a couple of instances of that even in the last couple of months, couple of weeks. The little initiative with Super Value in terms of helping vulnerable people and people who can't access the shops to have groceries delivered to them. When you talked to me there about use of grounds for HSE purposes, Allianz were a fantastic help to us there in terms of making sure that both the units and the organisation as a whole and the individual people who are performing duties way outside of what they normally be doing GA-wise, but they're safe in terms of an insurance point of view. What else? You'll have seen RTE showing old matches, such as people have been enjoying of late. Little things like that. There are all manner of ways in which, even though the particular purpose for which those companies got involved, GAYs, is suspended at the moment. There's still a role for them to play and for us to play in common in what the country faces at the moment.
It has been encouraging this week. We've been carrying the news stories from AIB with the Camogie,
all those things. Yeah,
the
all those
team of the
things.
year, Electric Ireland in the higher education
Yeah,
as well. Both of those
yeah,
teams announced this week.
and not just our sports either, Rob.
Mm.
Across the board, I think.
Yeah, very much so. I think sport and business have been coming together on it.
Yeah.
We mentioned there about the fact of contingencies and planning for when we might be able to come out there. Has there been substantial work done in terms of scenario planning for whether we might be able to get going in the middle of June, the beginning of July, the beginning of August? It's too depressing to go much further than that, but it may be needed.
It's actually not depressing. I don't think. That's the one thing in this that reminds you that there is something at the end of it all, and we will get back to playing matches. So yeah, we've done a few different permutations and plans. The first one, I don't mind telling you, was with the 1st of May restart. So we will shelve that one. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay.
So yeah, there are a few scenarios that look at what the remainder of the GAA year might look like if we started 1st of June. Again, now you probably have your own view as regards how likely that is. Then as you move further down back through the year, hopefully it's a little bit more likely. And we've looked at what 1st of July might mean. We're looking at August. All they are at this stage, Rob, is just ideas. And you're looking at, what length of period you would need to actually play off the championships, looking at whether you'd finish the leagues or not. Certain scenarios you might, not really for the leagues themselves in terms of the trophies and winners and so on, but they'll have a big bearing on next year for where people are going to play. So if there was a possibility to play some of those games interspersed in the middle of a championship as and when teams became available to play off a final league game, you might do that, or you might play them before the championship would restart in lieu of inevitable challenge matches people would want to play. It's also important as well not to forget that there's 32 counties that will want to play their club championships and their leagues as well if they can too. So we need to allow plenty of space for that, because actually I think when people are missing Gaelic games, they're missing their own local club stuff as much, if not more in some cases, because that's the real social outlet for people as well. So it's not just a case of how long does it take to play Sam Maguire and how long does it take to play for Liam McCarthy and so on. It will be back, but they'll be different though. What precise shape or form they'll take, I don't know, Rob, but it's fair to say they'll be significantly different. Yeah.
Okay, everything's still on the table though at the moment. I know I've got friends in Cork that would be nervous that if the Alliance Leagues didn't carry on, that they might not get a chance to play in Sam Maguire this year. But that the second tier competition, that's still on the cards at the moment, but may have to be foregone if we end up going through to
that's
the end.
That's a difficult one. That's a difficult one for two reasons really. First of all, it does presuppose that the league is concluded, and secondly, then the sheer feat of fitting in the footprint of that in the middle of what would be a very, very truncated tail end of the year. So that's one of the challenges, Rob. To be honest, I genuinely don't know what it looks like, but we have looked at 3 or 4 different little scenarios, but there are so many competing interests and competing priorities within those that we'll conclude it soon enough, though, I think, because it's good for the head if nothing else. It's actually that's nice stuff to be looking at.
I've been sketching out a few scenarios myself as well, and it gives you hope and heart.
I'd be delighted to see them.
It has been, we mentioned earlier, there has been plenty of good moments over the past few weeks, as well as obviously that crushing numbers game, that comes out at 8:45 with the HSE and the government, and we can never forget that. That's the only show in town really at the moment. But all of those good things, they need to carry on. We need to keep on going as a society. Is there one message that you would have to the GAA community and to the wider sporting community and our society about how you think we will get through this and how we can get through this?
Well, I wouldn't be presumptuous enough now to a message from me is of far less import than all of the other stuff that we're hearing at the moment, Rob. And actually, that might be the first thing. I just do what we're told.
Mm-hmm.
I think the direction and leadership shown by the HSE and the health authorities has been really, really good, and it's very clear to see that they know what they're doing. So the first thing, to my mind, is take that direction and that leadership when it's available to us, and trust in the authorities. I think a bit of patience, and we've seen a few things there. A few initiatives, and a few both on our part and state initiatives and so on. People are learning as they go along with this, and people are genuinely doing their best. So a little bit of patience on all our parts, a little bit of forbearance on all our parts, a little bit of mutual kindness on all our parts will get us through it. And particularly on the sporting side of things, I do think when this is all done and over with, just remember that there's a huge role for sports to play in lifting the spirits of the entire country, not just our sports, all sports, and just to be cognizant of the responsibility that brings, but the opportunity that it brings for us as well. That we're all really, really looking forward to the day when we're back on a sideline again and shouting on or playing or whatever it might be.
I think you did right, and thanks very much for taking the time.
No, not at all, Rob. No,
they're valuable words, and keep up the great work that the association is doing. Sport for Business Daily Digest carries on every Monday to Friday, and we produce content in the afternoon as well. We're doing a whole series of live webinars and interviews online, trying to keep our community connected. But it really is only to shine a light on what the members of our community are doing. So, Tom Ryan of the GAA, thank you very much for sharing that with us today.
Thank you very much, Rob. Thank you.